Hello, my name is Sara Al-Ahmadi, and I'm going to walk you through a resource created by the Student Affairs Assessment Support Services team to help you locate pre-existing instruments to measure your desired student learning and development outcomes. The assessment cycle involves several steps: specifying student learning outcomes, or SLOs, creating and mapping programming to SLOs, selecting or designing instruments, examining program implementation fidelity, collecting outcomes information, analyzing data, and using the results for program-related decisions. If you would like a more comprehensive review of the assessment steps, we encourage you to check out the other resources we have available on our website on the assessment cycle page. In this video, we will focus on this step: designing and selecting instruments. Suppose you have already stated the desired SLOs and created a course or a program to achieve those SLOs. The next step is to decide how to measure the SLOs in order to assess the effectiveness of the programming. At this step, you have an important decision to make. Do you design a new measure or use an existing measure? There are several pros and cons for each choice. Let's review them together. One potential advantage of developing a new measure is outcome measure alignment. That is, you develop a measure that's specifically aligned with your desired definition of the outcome. This is great in that the measure operationalizes the outcome at your desired breadth and depth. But there are several disadvantages to developing new measures. First, the instrument development process is lengthy. It takes a good bit of time to review the literature to define the outcome, understand the various aspects of the outcome, and distinguish it from other related outcomes. Typically, this work defining the construct, specifically its breadth and depth, is conducted by or with a content expert. Then you should expect the initial item writing process to consume several days at a minimum. Second, developing a new measure is resource intensive. You will need to collect empirical evidence to ensure that the scores produced by the measure reflect the outcome of interest reliably. This process is typically iterative, involving expert review of the items, responses, and instructions, and then the collection of multiple samples of data to evaluate item functioning. Given that all the items created typically do not function well, you then engage in a process of removing or rewriting items, and then assessing the functioning of the new pool of items. You may need a year to create a measure that produces scores that are reliable and afford valid inferences. You may need much longer if you are not an expert in the outcome domain and need time to understand the literature. Third, creating a new measure limits comparisons of your assessment results to results produced by others using existing measures. But you have another option. What about identifying existing measures and selecting one to measure the outcome of interest? In this case, the work of developing the measure and collecting validity evidence is already done for you. Moreover, you can compare your assessment results with the results of others using the same instrument. This option comes with potential disadvantages, such as less outcome measure alignment and difficulty finding high-quality existing measures. I am here to help you with the second challenge: finding measures. Fortunately, there are innumerable measures available that span various domains, and many of these measures have good psychometric properties. Yet the challenge of searching and selecting a high-quality instrument remains. It may be daunting to those who do not have a strong background in measurement. This is where we can help. We have created a resource that compiles more than 30 repositories of pre-existing measures. This resource is available through our website, and you can access it on the Instrument and Selection Design page when you click on "Where can you find pre-existing measures?" Let's walk through this collection of repositories of existing measures. We organize the repositories into 3 tiers based on the quality of evidence and the utility of the repository. The first tier includes repositories that evaluate the psychometric properties of the measures they contain. That is, experts review the available reliability and validity evidence associated with the scores produced by the measure. Based on the review of evidence, they provide ratings of the instrument's psychometric properties. Repositories in this tier provide the most utility in that they not only locate pre-existing measures, but also provide guidance on the measure's quality. The second tier includes repositories that also locate measures and summarize the psychometric properties of the measures, but do not provide their own rating of the quality of the measures. You must consume the psychometric information to inform your impression of the quality of the measure. The third tier includes repositories that locate measures but do not summarize the psychometric properties nor provide their own rating of quality. You may find information about the psychometric properties of those measures in the links provided by the repositories. To increase the utility of this resource for student learning and development outcomes assessment, we provide a mapping of the learning outcomes domains developed by the Council for the Advancement of Standards in Higher Education, or CAS. CAS offers 6 learning outcome domains: knowledge acquisition, construction, integration, and application, cognitive complexity, intrapersonal development, interpersonal competence, humanitarianism and civic engagement, and practical competence. You will notice that for each repository, we list all 6 outcomes. However, we highlight via bolding and asterisks the domains reflected in the measures housed in each repository. If you are interested in outcomes developed by other organizations like LEAP by AACNU, the Degree Qualifications Profile, or Learning Reconsidered, you can learn more about how they overlap with CAS using the link provided in the resource. Before we look at the repositories closely, note that these repositories encompass both commercial and non-commercial measures. Commercial measures are copyrighted by the developers and are available for purchase, whereas non-commercial measures are available for free, typically through published journal articles. Regardless of which type of measure you use, you must cite the measure properly so others can access it. Now let's go through the repositories tier by tier. For each repository, we provide the link to the repository under source. The CAS domains reflected in the measures housed in the repository are under CAS standards. Information about the repository itself, including background, type of measures, commercial or non-commercial, the areas and domains they cover, for example, psychological, educational, or cognitive, the number of measures available, and in some instances, how to search the repository, all under description of resource. Under information about the characteristics of measures, we describe how the measures in the repository are presented and reviewed. For example, we detail whether the repository provides a description of the instrument, the target population, price if applicable, domains covered, scoring procedures, and reliability and validity information, among other pieces of information, depending on the nature of the repository. Then we list 5 examples of measures found in that repository. You can click on the links provided to take a look at those examples. Tier 1 includes repositories that provide the psychometric properties of the measures, as well as their own rating or evaluation of the quality of those measures. We recommend that you start at Tier 1 when searching for a measure of your outcome, because Tier 1 repositories evaluate the quality of the measures for you. What you need to do is 1. Find the instruments that best align with the outcome you're interested in. 2. Read the evaluation of the instruments provided by the repository, taking into account their reliability and validity information. And 3. Decide whether the test is appropriate to use for your purposes. Let's practice searching through Tier 1 repositories together. Say you want to measure students' critical thinking skills, and you decide to search for a measure in the Mental Measurements Yearbooks. As our resource indicates, the Mental Measurements Yearbooks, or MMY, are published by the Borough's Center for Testing. The MMY includes commercially available test reviews that evaluate information to promote and encourage informed test selection. I will go over test reviews online in a moment, but for now I will access the searchable repository using my institutional access through JMU Library. The JMU Library page includes several resources. The one we are interested in is this, Mental Measurements Yearbook with Tests in Print. Now you can search this repository using search terms or keywords representing the outcome of interest, author name, population, test name, and in this case, even the name of the measure's reviewer. What if you're interested in a test of critical thinking skills that can be administered to a population of college students? You can type in critical thinking in the first search bar and adults in the second search bar. Be sure to change the field next to the second bar to reflect the field you want to search, population. If you want to add more search terms, you can click on this plus sign to add another search bar. Next, you have more search options, including whether you want to find results related to all or any of your search terms, results with a review available, results in a specific test category, and results from a specific yearbook volume. I am interested in finding tests that include an expert review, as this is one of the main advantages of this repository. After you specify your options, you can click on Search. The search returned 9 results. Now you can review which of these align more closely with your outcome. The first listed test is Business Critical Thinking Skills Test, but we are interested in a general test of critical thinking, not one that is specific to a certain domain, which in this case is business. So we'll take a look at the next one, the California Critical Thinking Skills Test. When you click on the test name, the link will take you to a page that details the test information: authors, publication date, purpose, test category, population, administration time, reviewers, yearbook volume, etc. You may notice that these were the field search options that we chose from earlier. Remember to utilize this neat feature when searching this repository. Scrolling down, you will see 2 reviews of the measure by 2 different experts that describe the test comprehensively, synthesize current findings about the available reliability and validity evidence, and finally provide their own recommendation regarding the utility of the test. The first reviewer says the California Critical Thinking Skills Test, or the CCTST, appears to be a reasonable measure for assessing the complex concept of critical thinking, but that unfortunately there is no mechanism for obtaining overall and subscale scores other than by submitting completed protocols to the publisher for scoring. Also, the CCTST appears to possess adequate psychometric properties, although significant expansion of the manual's technical data is necessary to allow for complete evaluation of the psychometric underpinnings. The utility of generalized CCTST administration for assessing students' critical thinking skills is not justified. As such, the CCTST would be used most appropriately in specialized settings where assessment of critical thinking skills is important to academic planning or progress determination. The second reviewer seems to agree. More explanation and research is needed to confirm the content and construct validity of the CCTST. Moreover, the normative sample needs to be expanded to be more representative of persons who may use the instrument. The CCTST clearly has potential for useful applications. However, more research is needed before prospective users can be comfortable with the meaning and stability of the CCTST results. The 2 reviews are not very encouraging. so we might need to go back to our search results and do some more browsing. To do that, scroll to the top of the page and click on Results List. Let's check out this test, the Cornell Critical Thinking Test, 5th edition. First, you'll get similar characteristic information about the test, or in this case, the group of tests. Let's scroll down to the reviews. After reporting the structure of the test, data from the normative samples, and reliability estimates, the first reviewer mentions that the Cornell Critical Thinking Test provides an objective method for evaluating critical thinking abilities that have been identified as necessary for individuals to respond appropriately to problems encountered in our complex world, and that assessment results provide information about the current critical thinking ability of an individual. These data may be helpful in selecting individuals for education and training programs that require higher order thinking ability, and for selecting workers who are required to use critical thinking ability to successfully perform their jobs. The second reviewer states that the data presented supports the use of the tests, but also recommended more empirical investigation to provide further validity evidence. The reviewer cites other studies that have noted that the Cornell critical thinking tests are not appropriate for individual decision-making, and that has not changed. Overall, the reviewers seem to be in favor of the test if used for outcomes assessment or program evaluation purposes, but caution against using it to make highly consequential decisions. Thus, we may elect to conduct more research and consult with measurement experts if important person-level decisions are to be made based on the test results. This is critical information, which we were able to acquire through experts' feedback. This is why Tier 1 repositories are the preferred place to start. One thing to highlight about the Bureau's mental measurements yearbooks is that you can use the searchable repository when you are browsing for measures in general, like what we just did. But what if you know of a specific measure, for example, the Watson-Glaser Critical Thinking Appraisal Test, and would like to see if it has been reviewed by experts in the mental measurements yearbooks? In that case, you can use the link embedded under the description to quickly locate the measure. The measures are listed alphabetically. We are looking for the Watson-Glaser test, so I'm going to click on the W here. And this will take me to the list of measures starting with a W, including the measure we're interested in. There are 2 forms of the Watson-Glaser test reviewed. As I mentioned earlier, I was able to search the Mental Measurements Yearbook repository using my institutional access provided by JMU. If your institution does not subscribe to the MMY databases, you can access the MMY reviews through Bureau's e-commerce site, Test Reviews Online. Test Reviews Online includes several search options. You can search the reviews alphabetically, by category, or you can use the test's title, acronym, author, and publisher, among other keywords, to search for the measure of interest. If I type in critical thinking under test title, the search will yield all the measures that include critical thinking in their title. If you choose to, you can click on Add to Cart to purchase any test review you're interested in. If you're interested in learning more about the Bureau's Center for Testing, the About Us page at bureaus.org provides detailed information about its mission and history. Also, the website includes a page providing helpful resources that guide you through the different Bureau's publications in detail. Consider referring to those guides when needed. Whereas Bureau's mental measurements yearbooks provide expert reviews of commercially available measures, you may be interested in expert reviews of measures that are free for use. There are other repositories in Tier 1 that include reviews of commercial and non-commercial measures. You could search through them to find an expert-reviewed measure that is available for free. One thing to keep in mind is that those repositories may differ in the amount of coverage given to any domains they share. There is unfortunately a paucity of repositories that provide expert reviews like those in Tier 1. However, there are many other repositories that assemble the psychometric information of the measures, which you could then evaluate in consultation with measurement experts. Tier 2 houses many of those repositories. Let's search through one of the Tier 2 repositories. Since our outcome of interest is still critical thinking, the RAND Education Assessment Finder seems like an appropriate repository, especially given that it includes measures aligned with the CAS domain, cognitive complexity. When you click on the link, it will take you to this page. On the right-hand side of the screen, you will see Search for Measures. Before we do that, notice the manual user instructions. This resource provides detailed instructions on how to navigate the repository and guides you through examples based on practical vignettes. Be sure to check it out and take advantage of this resource whenever needed. Now, let's click on Search for Measures. We see an alphabetical list of all measures in this repository. In order to see only relevant measures, you can use this tool here on the right-hand side of the screen to filter them. You can filter them by keyword, competency type, cognitive, intrapersonal, or interpersonal, or by measure details. Under Measure Details, you can click on these plus signs to reveal all the options. The measure details include grade level, respondent, method of administration, administration time, item format, and finally, fee for use, an option where you can select commercial or non-commercial measures. For our search, I'm going to select Cognitive under Competency, Post-Secondary under Grade Level, because that's the population I'm interested in, and Selected Response under Item Format, because I'm interested in multiple choice measures. Glancing at the list of filtered measures, I see a familiar test, the Cornell Critical Thinking Test. Let's take a look at how this repository showcases this measure and in what ways that differs from how the MMY from Tier 1 presents it. First, general information about the measure is provided: purpose, main construct, grade level or intended population, year the measure was developed or published. Then we get information about the measure administration, including method, item format, number of items, languages available, and whether it requires a fee for use. The next section is very informative as it explains the scoring technique and reporting. In this example, the measure can be used to report a total critical thinking skills score, but also 4 sub-skill scores reflecting induction, deduction, credibility, and identification of assumptions. Following that, we get information regarding evidence of technical quality of the measure, a link for locating the measure, and finally, references. The Evidence of Technical Quality section summarizes important information regarding the available reliability and validity evidence. Unlike the MMY reviews we had just read, which are conducted by measurement experts who consult the manual created by the test developers, the information provided here is a freely available summary of the psychometric properties of the measure from freely available published studies of the measure, not from the at-cost manual. This information does not constitute a formal expert review. Still, this information can inform the selection of assessments that would yield valid conclusions about the achievement of our student learning outcomes. Reliability evidence shows the extent to which the scores obtained from a certain measure are consistent across items, raters, time, and/or alternative forms. Validity evidence informs the extent to which existing evidence supports the interpretations of the test scores in light of the test's intended use. For more information about the concepts of reliability and validity, check out the brief introduction we have listed on our website under Psychometric Properties. Given the lack of evaluation of the psychometric information, the User Instructions Manual provided for the RAND Education Assessment Finder states that because interpreting validity evidence is complex and generally requires measurement expertise, users are encouraged to seek input from measurement experts to evaluate the adequacy and relevance of the available evidence for a particular assessment purpose. We fully endorse this statement and recommend consulting with measurement experts should you choose to find a measure from Tier 2 or 3. Back to our example. The Cornell Critical Thinking Test is a commercial test, as indicated under Fee for Use. Let's go back and try to find a non-commercial measure in this repository. You can click on Search. You will need to reapply your filters, but now let's also include a new filter. Under Fee for Use, select Free and Publicly Available. The search returned only 2 measures. Let's use the Compare feature to see which one aligns more with our outcome. Select Compare next to each measure you want to compare, then click on Compare Selected. The 2 measures are presented side by side. Both can be used with adult students. One has 6 items, whereas the other has 30 items. Under scoring, we learned that the first measure yields only 1 total score, while the second provides a total score as well as 3 subscores. As for the reliability and validity evidence, it seems that the second measure, the Metacognitive Awareness of Reading Strategies Inventory, exhibits higher internal consistency estimates. More validity evidence is found in support of this measure as well. It seems that overall, the second measure is a better candidate, but only if your outcome of interest is related to metacognitive awareness of reading strategies, as opposed to critical thinking. If not, then you can resume your search using another repository. Let's take a look at another repository from Tier 2. This ETS research report series focuses on synthesizing research related to educational evaluation and assessment methods. I can see here that we have highlighted a report on critical thinking, and I could just click on that to access the report. But let's practice searching the repository. Clicking on the link provided under Source will take you to this ETS page. If you scroll down, you will see highlighted articles as the most recent, the most cited, and the most downloaded. If you scroll to the top of the page, you will see the search bar where you can type in a keyword to start your search, or you can choose advanced search to filter your search further. The advanced search feature allows you to use several search terms, specifying where they exist in the title, author name, abstract, etc. You could also specify the publication date. On the right, very helpful search terms are provided, such as how to use the Boolean operators, and, or, and not, among other techniques to refine your search. I want to search all the reports that include critical thinking in their title and refer to college anywhere within the report. I do not want to restrict the publication date, so I will leave the all dates selected. I'll click on Search. The search returned 2 reports. One presents results from pilot testing the Chinese version of a specific critical thinking test, and the other reviews the current state of critical thinking assessment in higher education. The latter seems to be a good place to start. I know that I have free access to it because that is stated right above the title. Clicking on the title takes me to a page containing the abstract and the body of the report. Skimming the report, I see that it provides a general review of the current state of critical thinking assessment, along with brief comparisons of 10 available measures, including some of the measures that we had just looked at, such as the Cornell Critical Thinking Test. Those comparisons include definitions, vendor or test developer, test format, length, themes, and of course the available validity evidence. The report ends with a proposed framework for future assessment of critical thinking. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see keywords associated with this report. Had we used those keywords in our search earlier, this report would have appeared in the results as well. If I am interested in downloading the report, since it's publicly available, I could just scroll up and click on this PDF icon provided under the report title. This ETS research report series can be very helpful if you want to increase your knowledge about a certain outcome and the available measures for its assessment, which includes a synthesis of reliability and validity evidence for all those measures. For example, if you click on Related on the right-hand side of the screen, you will find similar reports for the outcomes of quantitative literacy, civic competency and engagement, digital literacy, and written communication. What if you searched through Tier 1 and Tier 2 repositories and didn't find measures for the outcome of interest? Our resource provides an additional group of repositories in Tier 3 that may provide more content coverage. However, Tier 3 repositories do not supply you with a synthesis of the psychometric information on each measure, nor the expert's rating of them. This is a task that can be tackled with the help of a measurement expert. Let's see what kind of information Tier 3 repositories offer. The first repository in Tier 3 is PsycTests. It is run by the American Psychological Association with a focus on collecting tests and scales, both commercial and non-commercial. To search this repository, you will need to use your institutional access. I will use my JMU access through JMU Libraries website to access the repository. Go to JMU Libraries website, then click on Search and Find, which allows you to search journals, videos, music, and databases, among other options. Because I want to find PsycTests repository, I'm going to click on Databases. As you can see, there is a large number of databases that JMU grants me access to. I will type the name of the database that I'm interested in here in the search bar for a quicker find. And here it is. Once you click on that, you will see a confirmation that you are searching APA PsycTests. Using the same example, I'm going to search for critical thinking tests. Notice that this search tool also allows you to specify which fields you would like to search. If you scroll down, you will see many options to limit your search, like test type, age group, language, fee, instrument type, permission, etc. I'm going to search for critical thinking in the title, and I will limit my search to young adulthood for age group. The search returned two results: the Psychological Critical Thinking exam and the Halpern Critical Thinking assessment. Let's check out the first one. The purpose and the description provided indicate that the test is used to assess critical thinking in psychology students. That is, the test is specific to the psychology domain. Scrolling down, we see that no reliability or validity information is provided for this test. If you are interested in using the test, you can contact the publisher and the corresponding author. What about the Halpern Critical Thinking assessment? This one does not require domain-specific knowledge. It is available commercially, and you can contact the publisher for access. Some information about the reliability and validity is provided for this test, yet the evaluation is so limited that it requires a confirmation from a measurement expert. Let's look at one more repository from Tier 3. Reading the description provided in our resource can give you an idea of the content or domain that those repositories target, such as intercultural knowledge, alcohol use, PTSD, mentoring, etc. Reading the descriptions and checking the associated CAS domains helps in directing me to a repository that should include critical thinking measures. Let's check out this resource, the Assessment and Curriculum Support Center developed by the University of Hawaii at Manoa. This resource is a rubric bank that covers several domains. Let's see what rubrics they provide for critical thinking. After clicking on the link, you will see the rubrics grouped by area, graduate programs, civic knowledge, collaboration, critical and creative thinking, information literacy, metacognition, and more. Under critical thinking, creative thinking, there are 2 rubrics specifically designed to assess critical thinking. Clicking on the name will take you to the rubric. The first one has 4 levels and rates interpretation, analysis and evaluation, and presentation. The second one is the critical thinking value rubric from AACNU, which goes more in depth, defining critical thinking and illuminating certain terms used in the rubric. It also has 4 levels rating explanation of issues, evidence selected, influence of context and assumptions, perspective, and conclusions drawn. As I mentioned earlier, Tier 3 repositories help you find measures, but do not evaluate those measures for you. This is why we recommend starting with Tier 1 repositories and going down the list. In this video, we discussed the frequent need for selecting instead of designing measures in order to assess student learning outcomes. Because not many academics and student affairs professionals are specifically trained in measurement, this task can be quite burdensome. We developed our resource, the Repositories of Existing Measures, to ease this burden of searching for high-quality measures. Our resource categorizes available repositories of existing measures into 3 tiers based on quality and utility. Together, we work through examples from each tier, contrasting the amount of information provided by each repository. Whereas we use critical thinking as the outcome of interest, these repositories include a variety of outcomes relevant to both academic affairs and student affairs. For example, anxiety, intercultural competence, loneliness, leadership, drinking motives, perseverance, belongingness, activism, and more. We hope that this video is helpful to you as you navigate our resource. For any questions, please contact the Student Affairs Assessment Support Services team. Our contact information is available on our website.